another thing when people have life rules is they lack the ability to be more adaptable. So say you are wanting to do property development, you're time poor, like many people, or time is just taken up. I had a great chat with somebody yesterday, and they said, I'm in the era of my life where I'm doing so much, and they're in that sort of 30 to 40 era. And I thought, you think it stops there? But anyway, I let them have it. But as in, I let them have that thought, and that's theirs to have. But sometimes when we say, I get out of bed at 6, that's what I do. That is a life rule that you're living by. If you're time poor and you need to spend some more time with property development, maybe it's time that you change that. Or I always go to the gym on this time, or I do that. Maybe it's time you looked at changing that. And I know as working as a coach, I often use these words. And if you're stuck somewhere in your life and you're living by a life rule, ask yourself this: how's it working out for me? I remember having
that old chestnut.
Had a great conversation with a client way back early days in my coaching, and he was telling me he had some serious life rules and he was having some issues about something. But I looked at him and I said, "And how's that working out for you?" And it made him realise, oh my goodness. But that's a great question to ask yourself. How's that working out for you? Because when I profile somebody, it's great. You learn all about you, your tendencies, what you're great at, and when you're under pressure, what you're not so great at. And what you need to understand is if something's not working out in your life and it's due to the way you are as a person, one being someone who lives by two absolutes, too many absolute words or too many life rules, how's it working out for you?
Oh, that squares it up.